I didn't get a chance to play the Star Wars Force Unleashed games when they first came out, so I finally decided to sit down and give them a go. I'm playing the Xbox 360 version, but it was also released on various systems. The first game in the series, Star Wars The Force Unleashed, was released in 2008. That one tells the story of Darth Vader's secret apprentice, StarKiller. A few years later, they made this sequel where you can play as StarKiller's clone. He's got the same memories as his predecessor, which creates all sorts of problems.
Strike her down.
I can't!
So this clone is aware that he's a clone, but he's still interested in this girl. He should realize that he's not the same person, but he doesn't, and just continues to stalk her out the whole game.
Juno!
I think this makes him really creepy and unlikable, and he's the main character.
Your feelings for her are not real.
They are real to me!
So your whole goal in this game is to go stalk out this poor girl and trick her into thinking he's someone he's not. That's a pretty shitty goal for the game. You know what Luke Skywalker's goal in the original 1977 film was? Saving the universe. And that's where this game starts, with you literally running away from Darth Vader on a quest to stalk some girl. It is cool though how the game throws you right into the action, instead of boring you to death with cutscenes before any gameplay happens. But sadly, once the plot starts happening, you're left with a contrived mess. So StarKiller is a really powerful Jedi, and he would be able to use his incredible powers to help the rebellion fight against the Empire, but being a mixed up clone, he decides he doesn't want to fight and needs some time to think things over. So, at one point he goes away to a remote planet and ends up on Dagobah, the planet Luke went to in Empire Strikes Back. There, he encounters Yoda, who sends him into a cave to see his destiny or something. The whole situation comes off really out of place, since these characters don't even know each other. It just seems like a cheap excuse to fit Yoda into the game somewhere. Also, you briefly see Boba Fett during the game, who kidnaps the girl, Juno. You'd think you'd get the chance to fight him later on somewhere in the game, but it never happens. Again, it's just a tease to get all the popular characters in there for no real reason. A few times throughout the game, they tell you that it's impossible to clone a Jedi.
I told you, no one can clone a Jedi.
But clearly, Vader was able to clone a Jedi because you're playing as a clone Jedi. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and even if there is some sort of explanation, I just find the whole clone thing to be pretty uninteresting, and I don't care either way. I find myself just wishing the game had an entirely different plot altogether. The combat is slightly more refined than in the first game, but it's largely the same. The biggest issue that comes with hack and slash games generally is that they can get really repetitive, but this game does a good job keeping it fresh because of the variety of attacks that you can pull off. The one I use the most is probably the Jedi Push, where you can use the Force to send enemies flying to their death. It's almost like having a gun because it's a long-range attack, but it's really overpowered and starts to feel cheap after a while because you can just destroy nearly everything with it. You can't use it all the time, however, because certain enemies require you to attack in other ways. There's Siths that are resistant to Jedi attacks, so you have to use your lightsaber, and you have to use Force Lightning to take down jetpack troopers and other enemies. So all the different attack types keep it from getting too dull. You can throw lightsabers, which is sorta cool. You can use the Force to grab onto projectiles like missiles and redirect them back to the enemy, and you can even use the Force to crush a TIE fighter with your bare hands. That much is pretty badass, I'm not gonna lie. One ability you have, which is funny, is the Jedi Mind-Trick. You can take control of an enemy's thoughts and force them to commit suicide.
Your life is a lie!
I can't do this anymore!
The game's visuals are the biggest highlight. It does a great job making you feel like you're in the Star Wars universe. It's really flashy and impressive to look at, but it's just a shame that they didn't put the same attention to detail into the story. The game's really short, consisting of about only 4 levels or so. When I beat it, I actually felt like I had missed something, like I was mistakenly playing a demo version or something. It should have been at least 3 stages longer. Once in a while, they threw in a part where you're diving through the air. These sections do help break up the monotony of continual hack and slash gameplay, and are pretty awe-inspiring to look at. Though they're a little too easy, as all you're really doing is dodging small chunks of debris. The diving section where you're fighting the giant reminded me of the scene in Lord of the Rings with Gandalf fighting the Balrog. I wonder if that's what they were thinking there. There's not that many enemy types in the game. You're gonna find yourself fighting the same group of foes over and over, and it can get a little old. It's not as bad as some other hack and slash games, but some more enemy variation would have went a long way. The one I got sick of fighting the most was the large robots with the shields. They're pretty cool looking at first, and I like how you have to disarm them, but you have to fight so many of these things, I got bored killing them after a while because I knew exactly what the death animation was going to look like. It's the same thing over and over, where they freeze and explode. There are a few bosses in the game which don't pose much of a threat. There's this giant beast that you have to use the force push on to lock up his arms, and a spider droid that requires you to take its shields down in a few different ways. I thought that this fight was the best that the game had to offer. The final fight against Vader was pretty stupid. It's overly long and it makes you feel like Vader's a wimp. He just keeps running away and summoning clones to fight you instead of fighting you himself.
Kill him.
This fight really made me long for the days of the Super Nintendo Star Wars games. As far as challenge goes, the whole game is pretty easy. As I said before, certain enemies require you to attack them in a particular way. Imperial troopers can't be hurt with lightsaber attacks, so you use your force powers on them. Siths are the opposite. You attack them with the lightsaber. So as long as you know how to attack the enemies, they're not that hard to defeat at all. And there's not even very many enemy types, so it's not even hard to remember what attacks to use for which enemy. Also, when you're about to finish off a large enemy, the game will just tell you which button to press on screen. If you hate doing combo moves and you can't remember button combinations, then you'll like this for its incredibly simple combat mechanics. But if you're really into fighting games and live for doing Street Fighter style combos, you're gonna think that this fighting style is a joke. There's not much here that makes it stand apart that much from anything else. Honestly, if you want a better hack and slash style game for the 360, I'd say play Castle Crashers. After beating it once, I certainly wouldn't want to sit down and play through the entire main campaign again. There is some downloadable content to keep you playing, however. There's another added level called the Battle of Endor where you play as StarKiller turned to the dark side. Darth Vader sends you back to Endor to stop the rebels, and it's as if you're playing an alternate version of the events in Return of the Jedi. Unlike the Boba Fett situation, you at least get to fight Chewbacca, Han Solo, and Leia. And it's pretty grim seeing your favorite Star Wars heroes die brutal deaths. You actually get to see Leia become a Jedi and fight with lightsabers, which is pretty sweet, and it's cool to see an alternate dark what-if ending to Return of the Jedi. As far as the gameplay goes, it's nothing really different than the main game, but getting to mow down Ewoks with a lightsaber is pretty amazing. The game also has a challenge mode where you can go through different trials testing your skills. It's kinda cool, and I'd probably come back to that if anything. The Force Unleashed 2 has its pros and cons. Using Force abilities is enjoyable. The hit detection is really good, so it's satisfying killing stormtroopers and other enemies. The diving sections are a spectacle to see, and there's plenty of details thrown in to make you feel as if you're actually in the Star Wars universe. The cons are that the game is way too short and the plot seems really convoluted and uninspired. If you're interested in a better story, I'd say play the first game of the series. If you don't really care about plot and just want a fun yet easy hack and slash with great graphics, then it might be worth picking up.